I've been working on Duchenne muscular dystrophy since the discovery of the gene in 1987. And after a few years, Ataxia Canada, which is a foundation supporting research on Friedreich ataxia, has contacted me because they had raised funds since a couple of years, and they were looking for a researcher that could work on their disease, which is an hereditary disease. And because they had seen my publication in the field of Duchenne muscular dystrophy, they contacted me to work on that disease. In fact, I'm now working on Friedreich ataxia, but I'm also working on another disease called Ataxia 8, and I'm founded by a foundation in England, Ataxia UK. And I've been also contacted by an American foundation called RYR1 Foundation. They are working on a disease due to a mutation of the RYR gene. And again, they have contacted me because they saw my publication on Duchenne muscular dystrophy, on Friedreich ataxia. And so various foundations representing research for hereditary disease have contacted me because we have shown that we are working on hereditary disease and that we have the technology to modify gene, and this is exciting for a lot of these. It is one of the foundations supporting research on Friedreich ataxia. As I mentioned, I've been supported by Ataxia Canada, but this is a small foundation, as many of the foundation supporting research on hereditary disease. And therefore, although they are doing their best to support my research, their financial support is not large enough to carry all the research that we have to do as fast as possible. And that's why I have applied to National Ataxia Foundation for additional financial support to accelerate the research. It permits to have more financial resource to do more experiments and have more research assistant or a graduate student working on a project. Lots of experiments have to be done, and unfortunately, just animal resource, for example, we have mouse model of Friedreich ataxia that we are keeping, but each month I receive a bill of about $1,000 just for keeping these animals in the facility and reproducing them and genotyping them. So all of that, unfortunately, cost a lot of money, and therefore the financial support of National Ataxia Foundation is essential for supporting the research. Well, as I mentioned during my long conversation, my goal is really to develop therapies for several hereditary diseases, including Duchenne muscular dystrophy, Friedreich ataxia, and RYR gene mutation, and the foundation in England, this is for another gene called NKX2. So, if I can just show that we can develop therapies for one or two of these diseases, then the other therapies will follow up quickly, because they will eventually use the same techniques. And the techniques that we have right now are able to cut gene, are able to modify gene with great precision. The main challenge is delivery in vivo. This is the main challenge. When we're dealing with cells in culture, we can correct almost any point mutation that we are targeting right now. These technology works. They can modify the gene. They can correct the gene. The main challenge is to have enough vectors to do the experiment. And in fact, one of the challenges when I'm doing experiments in mice, just injecting one mouse with adeno-associated virus costs around $400 just for the production of the virus. So for humans, like I mentioned, it's very huge amount of money, $600,000. So one of the challenges is to develop therapies, but we have to develop affordable therapies. And that's why I'm looking into the potential of using extracellular vesicle or using lipid nanoparticle, because I hope that these delivery method will be cheaper. We have to develop therapies, but they have to be affordable therapies. You know, without support from foundations such as National Ataxia Foundation, let's face it, there will be very little research on hereditary disease. And unfortunately, it's not I'm a bad person, but without financial research, I cannot do anything. So we do need the support of foundations to support this research. Otherwise, you know, I have a grant from the Canadian Institute of Health Research, but in Canada, the grants are not as big as in the United States when they come from National NIH, National Institute of Health. Unfortunately, the grants are smaller in Canada. And so when you have one grant from the Canadian Institute of Health Research, it's very difficult to get the second one. And with only one grant from the Canadian Institute of Health Research, what you can do is very limited. So that's why I need support from foundations supporting research on various hereditary disease. And what's fun is when we are working on one disease, for example, Friedreich ataxia, or working on Duchenne muscular dystrophy, or working on ataxia 8, it may seem to you that these are different diseases, but for us, this is the same thing. You know, we have to use the same techniques to correct the gene, modify the gene, and deliver the correcting agent. So it's the same problem. So all the 15 people working in my lab are communicating with one another, discussing, and when we are making progress for one disease, this progress is also applicable for another disease. Well, I can tell you that I'm past the age of retirement, but I have so much fun right now with research that I'm not retired. You know, I would be very lonely, very sad if I would be at home because there's so much to do. And it's so exciting to be in research right now that I'm not retiring. I don't plan to retire in the next few years. I want to reach a treatment before I do that.